Let's see if you can answer the following questions. How long does a recruiter take to shortlist a resume? 6 to 8 seconds, 30 seconds, or 2 minutes? You'd be surprised, but it takes only 6 to 8 seconds to decide whether you are good fit for the interview rounds. Here's another question. 70% of the time, who sees your resume first? The hiring manager, the recruiter, the ATS? The correct answer is ATS. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. It is a software used by companies to track and manage their job applicants. ATS goes through the resume content and picks the resumes that have relevant keywords to match the job requirements. That's right. 70% of the time, your resume is being scanned by a machine even before it gets into the hands of a human recruiter. So what does it take to get past the initial screening with a killer resume? Hi, I'm Ritvik, and today I'm going to walk you through actionable tips and insights to build a solid one-page resume. The only way you can grab a recruiter's attention within 6 seconds or pass the ATS screening is by presenting your work in the best way possible and give them a reason to call you and further discuss your work in interview rounds. As a software developer, your resume should showcase your technical skills, projects you have worked on using those skills, and details about the languages, technology, and tools you know. The information has to be crisp and functional rather than beautiful. Ready to learn how you can create a crisp and functional resume for yourself? Like the video to let us know. To make it easier for you to follow, I'm breaking down the process into 6 steps. Stick around till the end and we will be looking at each step in detail one by one. Step 1. Prepare a rough draft. Before you begin creating your resume, go through the guidelines given in the resume guide attached in the description box. Once you have done that, start preparing a rough draft of your resume. Don't worry if your draft is longer than 1 page. The later part of the video will help you crispen your content. The process of creating your first draft might take at least 6 to 10 hours, stretching over multiple days. So let's look at what goes into your first draft. Optional part would be objective and summary. You need some personal information, skills, projects, work experience and internship, education, and another optional part would be achievements or extracurriculars. Let's break down each of these sections one by one. Unless you have over 5 years of experience, this section is not particularly useful. I'm a hardworking person with vociferous appetite for learning and I'm willing to die for the organization. Most recruiters have seen professional summaries on these lines and honestly, it does seem pointless. There's one exception though. If you're moving from one role to another, this section becomes extremely relevant. It helps the hiring manager understand what you have done in the past and what you want to do next. So add your intent in this section, which can actually be useful. I'm a QA professional with 2 years of experience. I've completed my fellowship in full stack from Cryo.do and am ready to move to a development role. This emphasizes both what you want to become and what you have actually done to get there. If you are including this in your resume, be sure that it is to the point and clearly states your career objectives. Coming to one of the must-have sections, something you absolutely cannot afford to miss. That is your personal information. It has to be present at the very top of your resume. Let's say a recruiter is impressed with your work and wants to get in touch with you. But if they don't know who you are and how to reach you, they would just drop your resume and move on to the next one. Be sure to include your name, phone number, email, GitHub handle, and LinkedIn handle. It's optional to add your photo in your resume. It's a personal choice and I'm quite neutral about it. This much information is all recruiters look for. Anything beyond that, like your date of birth, marital status, gender, parents' name, home address, are irrelevant. Recruiters just skip this part as it has nothing to do with what they are looking for in a candidate. What they're looking for the most is your skills. Since this is one of the most important sections of your resume, we'll go over in detail during step 3 part of the video and learn how to craft this section in a way that will impress recruiters. To back up your skills, hiring manager look for relevant projects that you have included in your resume. The basic rule of thumb is to include projects where you have written at least 100 to 150 lines of meaningful code. If you really want to grab attention, don't include projects like student attendance system, library management, Twitter sentiment analysis, or some random IoT ones. Given that 99% of the people who have these in their resumes have hardly written any code, hiring managers comfortably ignore these. Fun fact, 90% of the students today have social sentiment analysis project in their resumes. Another mistake many people make that gets their resume rejected is by adding too many non-development projects when applying for a software role. For example, 3 to 4 ML projects on your resume when applying for a developer position is not going to get you shortlisted for the role. So might as well take that out of your resume and include relevant projects that match the company's expectations. If you want to stand out but you're not sure what projects to work on, check out Cryo's Project Hub. Here you'll find 50 plus projects in Python, web development, Java, and more. The best part is that they come with a free guided plan to help you finish the project all by yourself. In addition to your projects, hiring managers look at your work experience to assess how hands-on you are with your technical skills. They're going to scan through the work you have done, the impact you have created, and for how long have you worked in the respective companies. So be sure to include your role, company name, duration, responsibilities, and the tech you worked on. When you're writing about your responsibilities, responsibilities, be sure to remove sentences that are too generic and don't directly reflect your contribution. And also, don't copy paste bullets from a job description. Consider a work experience section like this one. Do you see anything wrong? Resolving tickets, maintaining issue logs, understanding project requirements, analyzing data, etc. are all too generic and don't communicate your contributions in a clear manner. Now look at this job description. Are the responsibilities written in the resume the same as this job description? But instead, if you write the same thing as solved 300 tickets with an average feedback rating of 4 out of 5 for an insurance client, it clearly shows the impact of your contributions. If you want more tips on how to craft these sentences, go through the tips and guidelines given in the resume guide shared in the description box. Next comes your education background. Keep it simple and cover all the info in about 3 to 4 lines. Your class or degree, college or school name, and year of passing. If you scored well across 10th, 12th and graduation, include all 3. These communicate that you're studious, which is a useful attribute. Add these in reverse chronological order. That is, show your graduation details first, followed by class 12th, and then followed by class 10. After 4 or 5 years of experience, there's no need to add 10th or 12th marks unless it could be a highlight in your resume. It is not necessary to add all the subjects you took up in college. They don't add value to your resume. The final step to finishing up your draft would be to include some achievements or extracurricular activities that show your soft skills. It is not compulsory to have this section in your resume, but if you won prizes in coding competitions or you play a sport representing your school or any other level, it helps to communicate your soft skills like perseverance, discipline, team player, and so on based on what you include. With that, you should have your initial draft ready. If you are struggling to remember your work contributions and fit them all in your resume, here are 3 pro tips for you. Pro tip 1. Take the task of jotting down all the things you have done well in the past that are relevant to the type of job you are applying for. Once you have dumped all the details, start trimming it down and move things around to fit relevant information in a structured way. You'll realize that it's easier to cut down on things rather than think about how to add new content. Pro tip 2. Whatever notes you have jotted down about your work experience, retain them. They will come in handy when you have to quickly refresh what you have done in the past before an interview. Pro tip 3. You may not remember all things you have done over a period of time. So, go through your performance reviews in the company for a list of all the work you have done in the past. Now that you have your first draft ready, let's dive deeper into how you can present your work experience in the best way possible. Look at these 2 examples. The first one is quite generic and doesn't communicate the impact of your work. Look at the second one. By including numbers and adding specific details, you can objectively showcase how your contribution helped the organization. Here is a simple and effective structure that you can use. And to fill in your action, use powerful verbs like accelerated, built, increased, etc. to describe your contribution in a meaningful way. For example, developed a caching system using Redis to improve the application's performance by 20%. At the end of the day, you are an engineer. Your skills count more than your creativity. My recommendation would be to make this section as functional as possible in your resume. Here's how you can do it. Number 1, organize your skills into various categories. Separate out languages, technologies, tools, etc. and mention what you know in each category. Avoid using buzzwords that you can't justify in your resume. In other words, if the interviewer asks about various words in your resume, can you answer them clearly? If no, then drop them. Remember that your resume is the best representation of your work that you can defend in an interview. For example, if you have added Docker or Kafka to your resume and the interviewer asks you a question about them, if you're unable to answer, it leaves a bad impression. Third important factor is position. That is where you place your skill section. At a glance, anyone should be able to find the skill section and get a sense of what you're good at. I would recommend having it close to the top section of the resume right below your profile info. Remember we discussed about ATS? Optimize this section for it. If you go too graphic here, ATS may find it hard to pass the information. And this would result in lower chances of a human seeing your resume. Now that you have included all important sections in your resume, it is time to fine tune and structure it into a one-page resume. Given that there are multiple sections in your resume, what do you think should be the first section of your resume? Is it how do you go about ordering the following? Education, qualifications, work experience, or projects? It is important to note here that sticking to any one template may not always do you good. Every person is unique and can adopt different ways to highlight their best skills and strengths on the resume. Let's say you're from one of the NITs or IITs. This aspect alone can get you shortlisted in multiple companies. So unless your current company gives you much more leverage than this, bring this to the top. If you have work experience close to the job you're applying for, consider adding this as your first section after personal details. If you're making a career switch, for example, you're moving from a QA role to a developer role, your work experience might not be of much help. So add personal projects to the top with quite a bit of detail about the tech and skills you use in them. This will give you a better shot at getting shortlisted. If you're not sure which section to add at the top, you can use the paper sliding technique. Cover your entire resume with another piece of paper and slide it down section by section. This is how a recruiter sees your resume. Suppose your recruiter stops seeing your resume at 1/4 of the page. What would you want them to ideally see? Your work experience, your project, or your education. This is how you can arrange these sections. Once you have structured your resume to suit your strengths, the most crucial factor to check is your resume is optimized for ATS. As we saw earlier, most big companies use this software to process resumes at a very initial stage, and the machine shortlists resumes based on the keyword it finds on your resume. There are a few tools that can help you out, and one such tool that we found quite useful is this resume worded tool. I've added its link in the description below. Here's how you can use it to check your resume's ATS readiness score. Go to the site link I've shared in the description below. Copy paste one of the job descriptions suggestions based on the role you are looking for. I have added links to a few sample JDs for front-end, back-end, and full-stack roles in the description below. You can use that now to see how this works. Paste your resume. Continue with the next steps shown in the website to generate your score. Try to push your score above 60 in the skill section. Don't add skills that you're not comfortable with. The score visible on the screen is more of a directional guidance. Mind you, this tool has a finite number of tries for a single email ID, so be mindful of this when you're testing out your resume. Now that your resume is ready, the final step is to review it thoroughly. Let's recap the things you have to keep in mind when preparing a resume. Keep your resume no longer than one page. Include personal details so that it's easily accessible to the reviewer's eye. Prepare a rough draft with information in the following sections: skills, projects, work experience, education background, achievements, or extracurriculars. If you're shifting roles, make sure that you have mentioned your objectives clearly at the top. Keep the content crisp. Remove generic sentences and add specific details to describe your work and contributions. Categorize your skills as languages, technologies, tools, and databases, etc. Order your section in such a way that your strengths for the job are highlighted on the top. Use the paper sliding technique to ensure you're ordering your resume with the most important things coming right at the top. Optimize your resume to pass through ATS screening, and at last, get it reviewed by at least two types of people. Someone who knows you. Ask them if your resume reflects your strengths accurately. Someone who doesn't know you. Get an outsider's perspective, as this is how the recruiter will look at your resume. For an outsider's perspective on your resume, you can reach out to your seniors or people from the same city on LinkedIn for help. Most of them would be willing to help you. If you ping 10 people, 3 to 4 of them may be able to give you some good feedback. And that brings us to the end of this video. If you found this guide useful, share it with your friends on social platforms. Who knows, you could be helping someone who's struggling to craft attention-grabbing resumes for their next job interview. If there is anything else that we missed to share, let's continue that conversation in the comment section. And until next time, all the best for your interviews.